At some point in history, every great invention began with a simple promise. This will make life easier. This will solve a problem. This will save us. And very often it did. Fire gave warmth, wheels gave movement, medicine gave hope, machines gave power, knowledge spread faster than ever before. Each invention felt like a step forward, proof that humanity was learning to master its world. But history has a habit of leaving out the second part of the story. Because alongside the inventions that saved lives were inventions that quietly changed how death looked. Alongside the tools that healed were tools that harmed, and alongside progress itself were consequences no one fully understood until it was too late. The most unsettling truth is not that some inventions failed. It is that many of the most dangerous inventions were once celebrated as miracles. They were welcomed, trusted, praised. People gathered to see them. Newspapers wrote about them. Scientists defended them. Governments invested in them. Ordinary people used them with confidence, believing they represented a better future. And in many cases, they were right, at least at first. Human history is shaped not only by what we invent, but by how quickly we adopt those inventions before we truly understand them. Curiosity moves faster than caution. Hope outruns wisdom. And once a new idea enters the world, it rarely stays small. An invention is never just an object. It is a decision, a direction, a door that opens into a future no one has fully explored. Sometimes that door leads to healing, sometimes it leads to destruction, and often it leads to both at the same time. What makes these stories uncomfortable is not that people were reckless. It is that they were optimistic. They believed that intelligence alone was enough, that progress automatically meant improvement, that human control would always keep pace with human creativity. History suggests otherwise. Again and again, humans have built things they did not fully understand, then raced to use them before asking what they might cost. We have trusted theories before evidence, speed before safety, victory before consequence. And when the consequences arrived, they rarely came all at once. They appeared slowly, quietly, in small warnings that were easy to ignore. A few unexplained illnesses, a strange side effect, an accident dismissed as bad luck. By the time patterns became visible, the invention was already everywhere, integrated into daily life, economically important, politically protected, too large to easily stop. Progress, once unleashed, does not ask permission to continue. This is why some of the most terrifying moments in history did not involve wars or natural disasters, but laboratories, workshops, and factories. Places where ideas were turned into reality without fully understanding the price. It is also why the line between salvation and catastrophe is often far thinner than we like to believe. Many of the inventions you are about to hear about were created with good intentions. Some saved millions of lives. Others nearly destroyed entire ecosystems. Some changed the course of warfare. Others reshaped the human body itself. And in almost every case, the people responsible believed they were doing the right thing. This is not a story about evil inventors or mad scientists. Those are comforting myths. They allow us to distance ourselves from the problem. The real story is far more unsettling. It is about ordinary people using the best knowledge they had at the time, making decisions that felt reasonable, responsible, and even noble. It is about how easily intelligence can coexist with blindness. How progress can move faster than ethics. How invention, once celebrated, can become impossible to control. And perhaps most disturbingly, it is about how often humanity repeats this pattern. Each generation believes it is smarter than the last, more careful, more informed, more aware of risk, and yet, each generation creates new inventions that raise the same questions in different forms. Have we tested this enough? Do we understand the long-term effects? What happens if this spreads faster than we expect? What happens if it falls into the wrong hands? History shows that these questions are usually asked too late. The inventions that shape civilization rarely arrive with clear warnings. They arrive as solutions, as answers to urgent problems, as symbols of hope. And when hope is strong enough, doubt feels unnecessary. This is why studying strange inventions from the past matters. Not because we want to mock old mistakes, but because those mistakes were made by people very much like us. People who trusted progress, people who believed they were building a better world, people who could not see what lay beyond the immediate benefits. Every invention carries two stories: the story we tell when it is born, and the story we understand when it is too late to undo. Some inventions saved humanity from disease and suffering. Others introduced new forms of destruction humanity had never faced before. And some did both, depending on who controlled them and why. In this journey, we will explore inventions that cured illnesses while quietly poisoning bodies. Discoveries that promise safety while introducing unseen danger. Technologies that reshaped the world so completely that turning back was no longer an option. These are not distant, abstract ideas. They are warnings written into history itself, because the most dangerous inventions are not always the ones designed to destroy. They are often the ones designed to help, adopted without restraint, trusted without skepticism, and defended long after their harm becomes visible. As you listen, you may feel admiration, shock, unease, and perhaps recognition, because the question at the heart of these stories is not about the past, it is about us. If history has taught us anything, it is this: humanity's greatest strength, the ability to invent, is also its greatest risk. And the future will not be shaped by what we are capable of creating, but by how carefully we choose to use it. With that in mind, let us return to the moment where many of these stories begin. A time when invention felt pure, when discovery felt harmless, when no one yet realized that a single idea could change the fate of millions. Because once an invention enters the world, it never truly belongs to its creator again. And some ideas, once released, can never be taken back. It began not with violence, but with hope. Long before gunpowder tore through battlefields and reshaped the meaning of war, it was born from a far more human desire, the desire to live longer, to escape death, to outsmart the limits of the body. In ancient China, alchemists searched obsessively for the elixir of immortality. They mixed minerals, herbs, and metals, believing that the right combination could grant eternal life. These experiments were not reckless in their own time. They were respected pursuits, often supported by emperors and scholars. Alchemy was science before science had rules. One day, in the process of combining sulfur, charcoal, and saltpeter, something unexpected happened. The mixture burned. Not gently, not predictably, it exploded. The result was not immortality, it was fire. At first, gunpowder was treated as a curiosity, a dangerous substance, but also a fascinating one. It was used in fireworks, rituals, and celebrations. Loud explosions were believed to scare away evil spirits. Fire became spectacle, power became entertainment. No one looked at this substance and immediately thought of mass death. But history has a way of bending inventions toward conflict. As knowledge spread, so did experimentation. Fireworks became weapons, simple explosives were adapted into bombs, rockets, and eventually firearms. What began as a spiritual and experimental substance slowly transformed into a tool of control. Gunpowder did not invent war, it reinvented it. Before gunpowder, combat was personal. Swords required strength and proximity. Armor mattered. Skill mattered. Rank mattered. War was brutal but limited by the human body. Gunpowder erased many of those limits. Suddenly, distance mattered less than power. A peasant with a musket could kill a knight trained since childhood. Castles that stood for centuries fell in days. Walls became obsolete. Entire military systems collapsed. This was not just a technological shift. It was a social one. Gunpowder changed who could wield power. Armies grew larger. Warfare became more impersonal. Killing no longer required eye contact, it required only coordination and supply. And once nations realized its potential, there was no turning back. Gunpowder spread rapidly, through trade routes, through conquest, through imitation. Every society that encountered it faced the same decision: use it or fall behind. Ethical hesitation became weakness. The invention escaped its creators. Chinese scholars had warned about its danger. Some texts explicitly cautioned against misuse. But knowledge cannot be unlearned. Once an idea proves effective, it spreads regardless of intention. Gunpowder reshaped politics. Empires rose and fell based on access to it. Colonization accelerated. Resistance became futile against firepower. Entire cultures were subjugated not by superior numbers, but by superior technology. And yet gunpowder was also seen as progress. It ended sieges faster. It reduced the need for prolonged combat. Some argued it made war more efficient, less drawn out, that fewer soldiers suffered slow deaths. This logic is uncomfortable, but common throughout history. We often justify destructive inventions by comparing them to worse alternatives. We measure harm relative to what came before, not by the harm itself. Gunpowder also found peaceful uses: mining, construction, engineering. It allowed humans to reshape landscapes, dig deeper, build faster. Once again, the same substance both created and destroyed. This duality is what makes gunpowder such a powerful symbol of invention. It was not designed to kill. It became exceptional at it. And once its effectiveness was proven, restraint vanished. The people who first created gunpowder did not imagine world wars. They did not imagine cannons leveling cities or bullets shaping geopolitics. They were searching for life. Instead, they discovered a new way to end it. This is a pattern that will repeat throughout this journey. Inventions often begin with narrow intentions: solve a problem, answer a question, improve a condition. But once they enter the world, they encounter ambition, fear, and competition. And those forces reshape them. Gunpowder did not make humanity more violent, but it amplified violence dramatically. It lowered the barrier to killing. It shifted the scale of destruction beyond anything previously known. And perhaps most importantly, it taught humanity a lesson it would forget again and again: that once an invention proves useful in war, it will never remain neutral. As centuries passed, gunpowder evolved. Muskets became rifles, cannons became artillery, explosives became more refined, more precise, more devastating. Each improvement was praised as advancement. Each made killing more efficient. The logic remained unchanged. We invent, we adapt, we normalize. Gunpowder was humanity's first major lesson in how invention could escape morality. How a discovery born from curiosity could reshape the world in ways no one intended. And yet, even after witnessing its consequences, humanity did not slow down. Because the belief persisted that knowledge itself was harmless. That danger came only from misuse. That control would always be possible. The next invention would challenge that belief even further. Because unlike gunpowder, it did not announce its danger with explosions or noise. It worked silently, invisibly, and it entered the human body itself. In the next story, we will encounter an invention that allowed humans to see inside the body for the first time. A discovery that revolutionized medicine, saved countless lives, and quietly exposed an entire generation to invisible harm. In 1895, humanity learned how to see the invisible. When Wilhelm Conrad Röntgen discovered X-rays, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time in history, the human body could be seen without being cut open. Bones appeared through flesh, metal objects hidden beneath skin revealed themselves. What had once been mystery became image. It felt like magic. Doctors were stunned. Scientists were amazed. Newspapers across the world published X-ray images with excitement and awe. The discovery was hailed as a miracle of modern science, proof that humanity had crossed a new threshold of understanding. Seeing, after all, has always meant knowing. Hospitals rushed to acquire X-ray machines. Medical schools redesigned their curriculum. Surgeons believed operations would become safer. Diagnosis would become precise. Pain and uncertainty would be reduced. And for a time this seemed true. X-rays saved lives almost immediately. Broken bones could be identified accurately. Bullets could be located without blind probing. Internal injuries no longer required guesswork. Medicine stepped into a new era. But beneath this triumph lay a dangerous assumption. That because X-rays were invisible, they were harmless. At the time, radiation was poorly understood. There were no warning labels, no exposure limits, no protective equipment. Doctors, technicians, and patients stood directly in the path of radiation, often for long periods of time. X-ray demonstrations became public spectacles. People lined up to see their own bones. Shoe stores installed X-ray machines to help customers see how shoes fit inside their feet. Children pressed their faces close to glowing screens. Curiosity replaced caution. The novelty of seeing inside the body overshadowed any thought of risk. Medical staff were exposed daily. They held patients in place during scans. They adjusted equipment by hand. They performed repeated exposures without shielding. Some wore their burns like badges of honor, believing them to be proof of dedication to science. Slowly, quietly, the consequences appeared. Skin reddened and blistered, hair fell out, wounds refused to heal, fingers darkened, cracked, and eventually died. At first, these symptoms were dismissed. They were blamed on chemicals, heat, or coincidence. After all, the invention was supposed to heal. Some of the earliest pioneers paid the highest price. Radiologists and technicians developed cancers at alarming rates. Hands were amputated, faces scarred, lives shortened. Many of the people who helped bring X-rays into medicine did not live long enough to see their dangers fully acknowledged. And still, the machines remained. Because X-rays worked, this created a moral conflict that history would repeat many times. When an invention delivers undeniable benefits, its harms are often minimized or ignored. The suffering of a few is accepted as the cost of progress. Warnings did exist. Some scientists noticed patterns, some urged caution, but enthusiasm drowned out concern. Governments invested heavily. Hospitals expanded usage. Regulation lagged far behind innovation. Radiation became part of everyday life long before its dangers were understood. Even beyond medicine, X-rays spread rapidly. Security, industry, research, the invisible rays passed through bodies, materials, and environments with ease. The problem was not that humanity failed to notice harm. The problem was that humanity noticed it too slowly. By the time safety standards were introduced, countless people had already been exposed. Entire generations of medical workers suffered long-term consequences. The damage was not immediate. It unfolded over years, making cause and effect difficult to prove. This delay is one of the most dangerous aspects of technological harm. When consequences are invisible and delayed, responsibility becomes blurred. No single moment feels catastrophic enough to demand change. X-rays forced humanity to confront an uncomfortable truth. Not all danger announces itself. Some of the most destructive forces cannot be felt, seen, or heard. They work quietly, accumulating damage while appearing harmless. Eventually, science caught up with itself. Protective lead shielding was introduced. Exposure times were limited. Regulations were enforced. Radiation became something to be respected, measured, and controlled. But the lesson had already been written in human suffering. X-rays did not stop being used. They were refined, made safer, integrated responsibly. Their benefits remained immense. Modern medicine would be unthinkable without them. And this is what makes the story so unsettling. X-rays were not a mistake. They were a breakthrough. But they arrived before humanity understood their cost. And once they became indispensable, caution became secondary. This pattern should feel familiar. Innovation moves faster than understanding. Adoption moves faster than regulation. And by the time ethics catch up, damage has already occurred. The discovery of X-rays taught humanity how to look inside the body. It also taught humanity how easily curiosity can blind us to invisible danger. Seeing became believing, but believing came at a price. And if X-rays revealed the hidden structure of the human body, the next invention would go even further. It would promise not just insight, but vitality itself. It would glow with promise, literally. It would be marketed as health, beauty, and energy. And it would quietly poison the people who trusted it most. In the next story, we will enter a time when a glowing substance was celebrated as the future of medicine and luxury. A time when people willingly consumed radiation, believing it would make them stronger, younger, and more alive. At the beginning of the 20th century, humanity fell in love with a glow. Radium was discovered at a time when science felt unstoppable. Electricity had transformed cities. X-rays had revealed the invisible. Medicine seemed to be advancing faster than ever before. When scientists identified a substance that emitted its own light and appeared to produce energy endlessly, it felt like the future had arrived. Radium did not need fire, it did not need power, it glowed on its own. This glow became a promise. Scientists believed radium held immense healing power. It was associated with vitality, strength, and renewal. If radiation could see through the body, perhaps it could also fix it from within. The idea was seductive, invisible energy restoring invisible damage. Very quickly, radium escaped the laboratory. It entered consumer culture with astonishing speed. Companies infused radium into drinking water, toothpaste, cosmetics, ointments, medicines, and even food. Advertisements promised increased energy, youthful skin, stronger teeth, and better health. Radium was marketed as science made personal. People did not fear it. They trusted it. After all, it came from scientists, from laboratories, from the same modern world that had brought light and comfort into their homes. Radium watches and clocks became especially popular. Their glowing dials allowed people to see time in the dark. The effect felt magical, a small, steady light that never faded. To create this glow, factories hired young women to paint the numbers by hand. Using radium-based paint, they were taught to sharpen their brushes with their lips, placing the bristles between their teeth to achieve a fine point. Day after day, they swallowed tiny amounts of radium. They were told it was harmless. Some supervisors even joked that it was good for them. The glow became a novelty. Women painted their nails and teeth with radium paint for fun. They laughed when they glowed faintly in the dark. No one warned them. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Radium worked slowly, quietly. It did not cause immediate pain. It did not announce itself with burns or explosions. Then the symptoms began. Teeth loosened and fell out. Gums became inflamed. Jawbones deteriorated from the inside. Open sores refused to heal. Bones weakened. Pain intensified. Some women's jaws disintegrated entirely, a condition later known as radium jaw. Doctors were confused. Illness appeared unrelated. Each case seemed isolated. The connection was not obvious. Meanwhile, radium products remained on shelves. Consumers continued drinking radium-infused water, applying radium creams, believing they were investing in their health. The tragedy deepened when companies denied responsibility. They blamed the women. They dismissed symptoms. They claimed the product was safe. Legal battles dragged on while bodies deteriorated. Radium did not just harm individuals, it reshaped how society understood trust in science. The element that symbolized progress revealed something darker. That scientific authority, when paired with profit and speed, could become dangerous. That discovery without restraint could lead to disaster. Eventually, the evidence became undeniable. Radium lodged itself in bones, replacing calcium. It irradiated the body from within. Damage accumulated silently until it was catastrophic. Public opinion shifted, regulations followed, radium products were pulled from the market, safety standards emerged. The glow that once symbolized the future became a warning. But for many, the change came too late. The women who painted those dials became symbols of industrial neglect. Their suffering forced legal reform. Their stories reshaped workplace safety laws. They paid the price so others would not have to. Radium's story reveals a pattern that repeats relentlessly in the history of invention. When something feels miraculous, skepticism weakens. When science promises improvement, caution feels unnecessary. When innovation becomes fashionable, danger hides behind optimism. Radium was not evil, it was misunderstood. Its power was real, its danger was invisible, and invisibility makes harm easier to ignore. What makes this story especially haunting is how willing people were to put radium inside their bodies. To ingest it, to rub it into their skin, to trust it completely. They did not fear radiation. They desired it. Radium transformed from miracle to menace not because it changed, but because understanding caught up with belief. The glow never meant health. It only meant energy escaping. And once again, humanity learned a familiar lesson, that the most dangerous inventions are often the ones that feel the most beneficial. The ones wrapped in scientific language and modern confidence. The ones that promise vitality without demanding caution. Radium's legacy extends far beyond its era. It changed how medicine, industry, and governments approached safety. It reminded the world that innovation must be paired with responsibility. But history rarely learns only once. As radium faded from consumer life, humanity's faith in invention remained strong. The belief persisted that technology could solve problems faster than it could create them. And soon another invention would capture the imagination of the world, one that promised freedom, speed, and mastery over nature itself. Humans would leave the ground, and many would fall before learning how to stay in the air. In the next story, we will follow the invention that turned an ancient dream into reality, and transformed the sky into both a pathway and a battlefield. For as long as humans have looked at the sky, they have wanted to leave the ground. Ancient myths are filled with wings. Gods flew effortlessly. Heroes borrowed the power of birds. Flight represented freedom from gravity, from borders, from the limits of the human body. To fly was to escape the rules of the world. For centuries, this dream remained fantasy. Then, at the beginning of the 20th century, it became real. When the first airplanes lifted off the ground, the world watched in disbelief. Fragile machines made of wood, fabric, and wire carried human beings into the air. Newspapers called it a triumph. Crowds gathered to witness the impossible. Humanity had conquered the sky. Flight felt pure, noble, almost innocent. But the early days of aviation were anything but safe. Airplanes were experimental. Engines failed without warning. Wings snapped. Weather was poorly understood. Pilots had little training and even less protection. Each flight was a gamble. Each landing, a relief. Crashes were common. Death was frequent. And yet people kept flying because the dream was stronger than the fear. Early pilots were celebrated as heroes. Their deaths were framed as sacrifice. Accidents were dismissed as necessary steps toward progress. The public accepted risk because the reward felt revolutionary. A new dimension had opened. Airplanes promised speed beyond imagination. Distances that once took weeks could be crossed in hours. Trade expanded. Communication accelerated. The world began to feel smaller, but technology does not exist in a vacuum. As soon as airplanes proved useful, they attracted attention from those who saw their darker potential. Military leaders quickly realized that the sky offered more than transportation. It offered dominance. The airplane became a weapon. During World War I, aircraft were adapted for reconnaissance, then combat. Pilots shot at each other in the air. Bombs were dropped on cities for the first time in history. Civilians, once largely removed from battlefields, were suddenly vulnerable from above. The sky was no longer neutral. A technology born from curiosity and ambition became a tool of war within a decade. This transformation was not accidental. It followed a familiar pattern. Once an invention provides strategic advantage, it is reshaped to serve power. Moral hesitation becomes secondary to survival and victory. Aviation advanced rapidly under military pressure. Faster engines, stronger frames, deadlier payloads. Each improvement was justified as necessary. Each brought greater destructive capacity. At the same time, civilian aviation expanded. Passenger flights began, commercial airlines emerged. Flying became accessible to ordinary people. But safety lagged behind growth. Early commercial flights were dangerous. Weather forecasting was primitive. Navigation relied on landmarks and instinct. Mechanical failure remained common. Crashes filled newspapers, entire flights disappeared, without explanation. The public responded with a strange mixture of fear and fascination. Flying was terrifying, but it was also irresistible. It represented modernity itself. To fly was to participate in the future. Governments and companies pushed forward. Regulations developed slowly. Lessons were learned through tragedy. Each crash revealed weaknesses. Each improvement was built on the remains of previous failure. Aviation became safer not through caution, but through accumulation of loss. By the time airplanes became reliable, they were already embedded deeply into global systems. Trade, tourism, warfare, and diplomacy all depended on them. The sky had become infrastructure, and with that dependency came new risks. Airplanes enabled bombing campaigns that redefined war. Cities could be destroyed from the air. Entire populations could be targeted. The psychological impetus of aerial warfare reshaped civilian life. Fear came from above, invisible and unpredictable. The airplane did not invent war crimes, it amplified them. Even in peacetime, flight carried unseen consequences: noise pollution, environmental impact, cultural disruption. Air travel reshaped economies and landscapes in ways that took decades to understand. Yet few questioned whether the invention itself was a mistake. Because airplanes worked. They connected the world. They saved time. They made global cooperation possible. They enabled humanitarian aid and disaster response. They brought families together across continents. Once again, the same invention saved lives and ended them. The dream of flight was never purely good or evil. It was human, complex, contradictory. What makes the airplane such a powerful example is how quickly humanity accepted its dangers in exchange for its benefits. Crashes became statistics. Deaths became expected. Safety improved, but risk never vanished. We normalized the idea that hundreds of people could fall from the sky in a single moment. And we kept flying. This normalization reveals something essential about human behavior. When an invention becomes useful enough, danger becomes background noise. Fear dulls. Risk becomes acceptable. Flight no longer feels miraculous, it feels routine. But the cost of reaching that routine was enormous. The airplane fulfilled an ancient dream, but it also carried humanity into a new era of vulnerability. Borders mattered less, conflict expanded vertically. The sky became contested space, the dream of freedom came with the reality of falling. As aviation matured, humanity grew more confident, control improved, technology advanced. The sky felt safer, and that confidence set the stage for an even greater tragedy. Because while airplanes could fall accidentally, the next invention would cause harm without any crash at all. It would be taken willingly, prescribed carefully, trusted completely. It would enter the most vulnerable bodies. In the next story, we will examine a pharmaceutical invention once believed to be perfectly safe. A drug designed to ease suffering, approved without hesitation and distributed to millions. And its consequences would permanently change how humanity tests and trusts medicine. In the years following World War II, the world was desperate for comfort. Cities were rebuilding. Families were trying to heal. Faith in science was stronger than ever, because science had proven it could change the course of history. Antibiotics had saved millions. Vaccines were advancing rapidly. Medicine felt like a shield against suffering. In this atmosphere of optimism, a new drug entered the market. It was called thalidomide. At first, it seemed almost too good to be true. Thalidomide was marketed as a sedative, a treatment for anxiety, insomnia, and nausea. It was gentle, it was calming. Most importantly, it was advertised as safe. So safe, in fact, that doctors began prescribing it to pregnant women. Morning sickness was common, exhausting, and poorly treated. Thalidomide appeared to offer relief without risk. There were no immediate side effects, no signs of toxicity, no obvious danger. The drug spread quickly across Europe, Australia, and parts of Asia. Millions of doses were consumed. Trust was complete. But the human body does not always reveal damage immediately. Months passed. Babies were born. And something was wrong. Infants began arriving with severe physical deformities. Limbs were missing or shortened. Hands and feet appeared to grow directly from shoulders. Internal organs were malformed. Many babies did not survive infancy. Doctors were confused. These conditions were rare. Seeing them repeatedly in different cities across different countries made no sense. Each case seemed tragic but isolated. It took time for patterns to emerge. Eventually, the connection became undeniable. Thalidomide interfered with fetal development during early pregnancy. A small window of exposure caused irreversible damage. A drug designed to bring comfort had reshaped bodies before birth. The scale of the tragedy was staggering. More than 10,000 children were born with severe disabilities. Thousands more pregnancies ended in miscarriage. Families were shattered. Parents were overwhelmed with guilt and confusion. Many had done exactly what doctors told them to do. They trusted medicine. The shock rippled through the medical world. How could something so widely prescribed cause such harm? How had it passed safety testing? How had it been approved so quickly? The answer revealed a dangerous truth. At the time, drug testing regulations were minimal. Long-term studies were rare. Effects on pregnancy were poorly understood. Pharmaceutical companies tested drugs primarily on adults, assuming safety would transfer universally. Speed mattered more than caution. Thalidomide was withdrawn from the market once the link was established, but the damage could not be undone. Children would live their entire lives shaped by a decision made before they were born. The tragedy forced a reckoning. Governments strengthened drug approval processes. Clinical trials became longer and more rigorous. Testing on pregnant animals became mandatory. Regulatory agencies gained authority. Medical ethics changed permanently. But these reforms were built on suffering. Thalidomide revealed how fragile trust in medicine truly was. It exposed the illusion that scientific progress automatically meant safety. It showed that good intentions were not enough. Perhaps most unsettling was how easily the drug had been accepted. Doctors prescribed it confidently. Patients took it without hesitation. Advertisements emphasized reassurance rather than evidence. No one expected danger from something designed to help. Thalidomide did not look threatening. It did not glow. It did not explode. It came in a small pill wrapped in the language of care. This made it more dangerous. The tragedy also highlighted how responsibility can become diluted in systems driven by speed and profit. Pharmaceutical companies blamed regulators. Regulators blamed incomplete knowledge. Doctors blamed manufacturers. Parents blamed themselves. The truth was more complex. Everyone trusted the system, and the system failed. One country stood apart from the catastrophe. In the United States, a single FDA reviewer, Francis Kelsey, refused to approve thalidomide due to insufficient safety data. She faced pressure, criticism, and impatience. But her caution saved countless lives. Her story became proof that restraint could matter. But globally, restraint was rare. Thalidomide's legacy extended beyond medicine. It reshaped how society thought about responsibility. It forced uncomfortable questions about consent, risk, and accountability. Who decides when something is safe enough? Who bears the cost when it is not? The children born with thalidomide-related disabilities became living reminders of these questions. Many faced lifelong medical challenges, social stigma, and limited opportunities. Yet many also became advocates demanding recognition and compensation. Their existence changed laws. Thalidomide taught humanity that invention does not end at creation. Responsibility extends far beyond release. And once harm is done, no apology or reform can fully erase it. This lesson should have slowed humanity down. But history rarely pauses for reflection. Even as drug regulations tightened, another invention emerged that redefined danger on a scale far beyond individual bodies. A technology that promised to end war quickly, decisively, and permanently. Instead, it gave humanity the power to erase entire cities in seconds. In the next story, we will confront the invention that changed how the world understood destruction itself. A creation born from fear, urgency, and intellect, whose consequences still shape global politics today. No invention has ever forced humanity to confront itself so completely. The atomic bomb was not born from curiosity or comfort. It was born from fear. Fear that an enemy might build it first. Fear that hesitation would mean defeat. Fear that intelligence itself had become a weapon. In the late 1930s, physicists began to understand something extraordinary. The atom, once thought indivisible, contained immense energy. Under the right conditions, splitting it could release power far beyond anything humanity had ever controlled. At first, this knowledge felt theoretical. Complex equations, abstract ideas, the work of scientists who did not imagine cities disappearing in flashes of light. But the world was already at war. As Nazi Germany advanced across Europe, scientists who understood atomic physics became alarmed. They realized what was possible, and they realized what would happen if that possibility fell into the wrong hands. A letter was written to the President of the United States. It warned that a single bomb could destroy an entire city. It urged immediate action. It appealed not to ambition, but to survival. The response was swift. The Manhattan Project began in secrecy, urgency, and unprecedented scale. Thousands of scientists, engineers, and workers were mobilized. Entire towns were built in isolation, budgets exploded, timelines compressed. This was invention under pressure. The scientists involved were among the most brilliant minds of their generation. Many believed they were racing against time, not morality. Their work was framed as defensive, necessary, temporary. The bomb, they believed, would end the war quickly and save lives in the long run. This justification mattered, because to build something capable of annihilation, one must believe it serves a greater good. When the first atomic bomb was successfully tested, the reaction was not celebration. It was shock, awe, silence. Some scientists cheered, others wept. Many understood instantly that the world had changed in a way that could never be reversed. The power released was unlike anything before it. A single device produced destruction previously requiring thousands of bombs. Heat hotter than the sun, light brighter than day, shockwaves that flattened everything in their path. The atom had been turned into a weapon. Soon after atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the immediate devastation was incomprehensible. Entire cities vanished. Tens of thousands died instantly. Many more suffered burns, injuries, and radiation sickness that would kill them slowly. But the most horrifying aspect was not only the destruction. It was the realization that this could happen again, and again, and again. The atomic bomb did not just end a war. It began a new era, an era in which humanity lived under the shadow of its own invention. An era in which the possibility of total annihilation became permanent. For the first time in history, humanity possessed the means to destroy itself completely, and it knew it. Unlike previous weapons, the atomic bomb could not be normalized. Its scale was too vast, its consequences too absolute. It forced moral questions no society had ever faced. Could such a weapon ever be justified? Could its use be controlled? Could its existence be tolerated? These questions had no clear answers. Some argued that the bomb prevented further bloodshed, that its horror discouraged future wars, that fear itself became a form of peace. Others argued that no justification could outweigh the suffering it caused, that creating such power was a fundamental moral failure. What is undeniable is this: the atomic bomb changed how humans thought about invention. Before, destruction had limits. Cities could be rebuilt, populations recovered. War, however brutal, did not threaten existence itself. After the bomb, that changed. The Cold War followed. Nations raced to build more powerful weapons, bigger bombs, faster delivery systems. Submarines, missiles, and deterrence strategies emerged. The logic became terrifyingly simple. Peace depended on the threat of mutual destruction. This was invention as hostage-taking. Entire generations grew up knowing that their lives could end not through gradual collapse, but in minutes. Children practiced drills, governments prepared bunkers, scientists calculated probabilities of extinction. The bomb was never used again in war, but its presence shaped everything. It influenced diplomacy, economics, culture, art, psychology. The fear of annihilation became background noise, constant but distant enough to ignore most days. This normalization is one of the most disturbing aspects of the atomic age. Humanity adapted. The bomb became abstract, a number, a statistic, a bargaining chip. Its true horror faded into theory even as its destructive potential grew. Scientists who helped create it wrestled with guilt and responsibility. Some became advocates for disarmament, others defended their work. Many lived in silence, knowing they had opened a door that could not be closed. The atomic bomb revealed a truth humanity had never faced before. That intelligence does not guarantee wisdom. That invention does not include restraint. That once something is possible, it will exist whether we are ready or not, and perhaps most unsettling of all. The atomic bomb worked exactly as intended. It did not malfunction. It did not fail unexpectedly. It delivered precisely the power it was designed to unleash. The danger was not error. The danger was success. This invention forced humanity to confront the limits of progress itself. It raised the question of whether there are things humans should not build even if they can. That question remains unanswered. Today, nuclear weapons still exist. Their numbers have changed, but their threat remains. The knowledge to build them cannot be erased. The genie cannot be returned to the bottle. The atomic bomb is not just a weapon. It is a warning, a reminder that invention without ethical boundaries can outpace our ability to survive its consequences. And yet humanity did not stop inventing. Even after witnessing the bomb's potential, we continued to create technologies capable of reshaping the planet. Some saved lives. Others threatened ecosystems. Some promised convenience while quietly altering the world in irreversible ways. In the next story, we will examine an invention that seemed harmless, even benevolent. A chemical designed to protect crops and prevent disease. It would save millions of lives and nearly poison the entire natural world. For much of human history, death did not arrive dramatically. It arrived quietly, carried on wings. Mosquitoes spread malaria, fleas spread plague. Insects devastated crops and starved populations. Entire regions lived in fear of diseases they could not see and could not control. Long before antibiotics and vaccines, insects were among humanity's deadliest enemies. By the early 20th century, science believed it had finally found a solution. That solution was DDT. When dichlorodiphenyl trichloroethane was first tested, its effects seemed miraculous. Insects died almost instantly upon contact. Mosquito populations collapsed. Lice disappeared. Crops flourished. Diseases retreated. DDT did not just work. It worked spectacularly. During World War II, DDT was used to protect soldiers from typhus and malaria. Entire camps were sprayed. Soldiers dusted themselves with the chemical. The results were undeniable. Infection rates plummeted. Lives were saved. After the war, DDT was hailed as a hero of modern science. It was cheap, easy to produce, long-lasting. Governments embraced it enthusiastically. Farmers sprayed it across vast fields. Cities used it in public spaces. Homes were coated with it to keep insects away. DDT became part of daily life. People sprayed it on their children's bedding, on their pets, on food storage areas. Advertisements portrayed it as safe, clean, and modern. Scientists reassured the public that it posed no serious risk to humans. And once again, optimism drowned out caution. At first, there were no obvious problems. Insects died, crops grew, diseases declined. The benefits were immediate and measurable, but nature does not respond instantly. DDT did not disappear after doing its job. It lingered. It accumulated. It moved through soil and water. It entered the food chain quietly, molecule by molecule. Birds began to disappear. Eggshells grew thin and fragile. Chicks died before hatching. Predatory birds, once common, declined rapidly. Fish populations dropped. Insects that were not pests vanished as well. The ecosystem was unraveling. At first, these changes seemed unrelated. Each loss appeared isolated, but patterns emerged over time. The same chemical that killed mosquitoes was affecting entire species. DDT did not distinguish between targets. It poisoned indiscriminately. Even humans were not immune. Though the effects were less immediate, DDT accumulated in fatty tissue. It passed from mother to child. Long-term exposure was linked to cancer, reproductive problems, and neurological effects. Once again, the danger was delayed, and once again, this delay made denial easy. Industry defended DDT fiercely. It was profitable. It was effective. It had saved lives. Critics were dismissed as alarmists. Environmental damage was framed as an acceptable cost. After all, how could a chemical that prevented millions of deaths be considered dangerous? This question cut to the heart of modern invention. DDT represented a classic dilemma. A solution to one problem created an entirely new set of problems. Short-term success masked long-term catastrophe. The turning point came when a marine biologist named Rachel Carson published a book called Silent Spring. In it, she described a future where birds no longer sang, where ecosystems collapsed under chemical assault. Her writing was calm, evidence-based, meticulous. It was also revolutionary. Carson did not argue that DDT was evil. She argued that humanity had been reckless, that it had failed to consider consequences beyond immediate benefit, that controlling nature without understanding it was dangerous. The response was explosive. Chemical companies attacked her credibility. They accused her of fear-mongering. They questioned her science. Some claimed she threatened progress itself. But the evidence kept growing. Governments began investigating. Studies confirmed widespread contamination. Public opinion shifted. What was once seen as a miracle became a symbol of environmental destruction. Eventually, DDT was banned or heavily restricted in many countries. By then, the damage was extensive. Species had declined, ecosystems had been altered. Some effects would take decades to reverse. Others would never fully recover. Yet the story of DDT is not simple. In some parts of the world, malaria remains deadly. For these regions, limited use of DDT is still debated. The chemical continues to save lives when used carefully. This complexity makes DDT especially unsettling. It was not purely destructive. It was not purely beneficial. It existed in a gray space where survival and harm overlapped. DDT forced humanity to confront a difficult truth: that solving one problem aggressively can create others just as severe. That nature is interconnected in ways humans often fail to appreciate. That invention without humility can destabilize entire systems. Unlike the atomic bomb, DDT did not threaten instant annihilation. Its danger was slower, more subtle, but in some ways more pervasive. It seeped into the world quietly, and this is what makes it so relevant. Modern society relies on chemicals, technologies, and systems that promise efficiency and control. Many of them work brilliantly. Many of them also accumulate unseen consequences. DDT taught humanity that not all harm is immediate. Some damage unfolds over generations, and when it does, it is often too late to reverse completely. The chemical that once symbolized victory over nature became a lesson in coexistence. After DDT, environmental awareness grew, regulations strengthened, ecological thinking entered mainstream science. Humanity began to realize that invention must account for systems larger than immediate human need, but this realization did not stop progress. It merely redirected it. As environmental concerns rose, new inventions promised convenience rather than control. Not chemicals that killed pests, but products that reshaped behavior. Tools that changed how people lived, consumed, and thought. Some of these inventions seemed harmless, even trivial. But their cumulative impact would quietly transform society itself. In the next story, we will examine a small invention with massive influence. One that did not poison ecosystems or level cities, but changed how humanity consumed resources and viewed disposability. It was a simple object, and it altered the rhythm of daily life forever. Not all world-changing inventions arrive with explosions, warnings, or immediate harm. Some arrive quietly, wrapped in convenience. They promise to save time, to reduce effort, to make daily life smoother and more efficient. They do not threaten cities or ecosystems overnight. They simply change habits. And habits once changed are difficult to reverse. Disposable products were born from good intentions. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, many disposable items were introduced as hygienic solutions. Single-use medical tools reduced the spread of disease. Disposable packaging kept food safer. Paper products replaced materials that were difficult to clean or reuse. At the time, these inventions felt progressive. Cleanliness meant health. Convenience meant modernity. Waste was not yet a concern because consumption was limited. Materials were natural, populations were smaller, the scale of use remained manageable. But the world changed. As industrial production expanded, disposable goods multiplied. Paper cups, plastic wrappers, single-use razors, bottles, bags, utensils, items designed to be used briefly and discarded forever. What was once exceptional became routine. Disposable products redefined value. Objects no longer needed to last. Durability became optional. Repair became unnecessary. Ownership became temporary. This shift did not feel dangerous. In fact, it felt liberating. Life moved faster. Cleaning took less time. Travel became easier. Convenience became a marker of progress. Disposable items freed people from maintenance and responsibility. But every act of disposal creates a question. Where does it go? For decades, that question was easy to ignore. Trash disappeared from sight. Landfills expanded beyond city limits. Waste was exported to distant places. The consequences remained invisible. The invention itself seemed harmless. After all, a single cup, a single bag, a single razor did not matter. The danger lay in scale. Disposable culture trained humanity to think short-term. Use now, discard later, replace rather than repair, consume rather than conserve. This mindset spread beyond objects. It reshaped how people treated resources, environments, and even relationships with things. When everything is replaceable, nothing feels precious. Plastics accelerated this transformation dramatically. Lightweight, durable, cheap, and versatile, plastic became the perfect disposable material. It did not rot. It did not break easily. It did not disappear. It simply accumulated. Oceans filled with debris, microplastics entered food chains, animals ingested materials that could not be digested, entire ecosystems were altered slowly and silently. The most unsettling part was how ordinary it all felt. No single invention caused the crisis. No dramatic moment signaled danger. Disposable culture grew through countless small decisions that felt rational at the time. Buy convenience, save time, move on. The environmental cost was deferred to the future. Disposable convenience also reshaped economics. Products were designed with planned obsolescence. Longevity became unprofitable. Waste became built into business models. This was invention shaping behavior. Not through force, but through habit, and habits are powerful. Disposable culture also influenced psychology. When objects are temporary, attachment weakens. Care diminishes. Responsibility shifts away from individuals toward systems that promise to handle waste. Out of sight became out of mind. Unlike previous inventions that threatened immediate harm, disposable convenience offered slow comfort. It did not demand moral reckoning. It demanded only acceptance. And acceptance was easy. The benefits were real. Medical disposables saved lives. Packaging reduced contamination. Convenience improved quality of life for millions. Disposable products were not mistakes, but they were adopted without limits. No one imagined a world producing billions of tons of waste each year. No one planned for oceans becoming repositories of human consumption. No one predicted that materials designed to last forever would be thrown away after minutes. This was invention without foresight. As awareness grew, attempts to reverse the trend faced resistance. Convenience is addictive. Asking people to slow down, reuse, and repair feels like regression. Progress, once defined as speed and ease, is difficult to redefine as restraint. Disposable convenience revealed something profound about humanity. That comfort can be more persuasive than survival. That slow damage is easier to tolerate than immediate inconvenience. That systems built around ease rarely account for long-term cost. Unlike the atomic bomb, disposable culture did not threaten extinction in a moment. But its cumulative effect reshaped the planet itself. It blurred the line between use and waste, between need and excess, between innovation and irresponsibility. Today, humanity struggles to manage what it created. Recycling systems strain, waste exports spark political conflict, cleanup efforts chase an ever-growing problem. The invention did not fail. It succeeded too well. Disposable convenience changed how humanity consumes, and in doing so, it changed the world more subtly than any explosion ever could. This story matters because it shows that danger does not always look dangerous. Sometimes it looks like ease. Sometimes it feels like progress, and sometimes it takes generations to realize the cost. As society became more connected, another invention emerged that promised not just convenience, but connection itself. Information would flow freely, knowledge would be democratized, borders would blur, it would feel like liberation, but it would also reshape attention, truth, and human behavior in ways no one fully anticipated. In the next story, we will examine the invention that connected the world and quietly rewired it at the same time. At first, it felt like liberation. The internet promised something humanity had never truly experienced before. Unlimited access to information, instant communication across continents, the ability to learn, share, and connect without gatekeepers. Knowledge would no longer belong to institutions. Voices would no longer be silenced by distance. Truth would spread freely. This was the dream. In its early days, the internet felt almost innocent. A network built by researchers and engineers who believed in openness. Information moved slowly enough to be thoughtful. Communities formed around curiosity, not profit. The world felt larger yet more connected. Governments saw opportunity. Businesses saw efficiency. Educators saw a revolution. Activists saw a platform. The internet expanded rapidly, welcomed into homes, schools, and workplace. No one imagined it would change how humans think. At first, the benefits were undeniable. Access to education increased. Collaboration accelerated. Entire industries were transformed. Barriers to entry collapsed. Voices once ignored found audiences. The internet worked, and because it worked, it spread faster than any invention before it. What no one fully understood was that the internet was not just a tool. It was an environment, and environments shape behavior. As usage grew, incentives shifted. Platforms competed for attention. Algorithms learned what humans reacted to. Content was optimized not for truth but for engagement. Speed replaced reflection. Information arrived faster than it could be processed. Context collapsed. Nuance struggled to survive in systems designed to reward immediacy. The internet began to rewire habits. People no longer waited. They scrolled. They skimmed. They jumped from idea to idea. Attention fractured. Patience eroded. Silence became uncomfortable. This was not intentional harm. It was optimization. Human attention became the most valuable resource in the digital age. Platforms measured success not by understanding, but by time spent. The longer users stayed, the more valuable they became. Design followed data. Notifications interrupted thought. infinite feeds removed stopping points. Content adapted to emotional triggers. Fear, outrage, and validation spread faster than complexity. The internet did not invent these instincts, it amplified them. Meanwhile, the promise of truth became complicated. Information abundance did not guarantee accuracy. Falsehoods traveled as easily as facts, sometimes faster. Authority blurred. Expertise competed with popularity. Algorithms could not distinguish between insight and provocation. The result was confusion. Communities fractured into echo chambers. People consumed information that reinforced existing beliefs. Dialogue weakened. Certainty hardened. Shared reality became fragile. The internet had freed knowledge, but it had also fragmented understanding. Social relationships changed. Online connection replaced physical presence. Communication became constant but shallow. Loneliness increased even as networks expanded. Humans adapted quickly, too quickly. Sleep patterns shifted. Attention spans shortened. Anxiety rose. Validation became externalized. Identity blurred with performance. None of this arrived suddenly. It accumulated. Like many inventions before it, the internet's danger was delayed and diffuse. No single moment signaled crisis. No single design choice seemed catastrophic. The cost emerged slowly, embedded in daily life. Children grew up online, their development shaped by screens. Adults struggled to disconnect from systems designed to never let them go. Societies wrestled with misinformation, manipulation, and polarization. The internet did not fail. It succeeded beyond expectation. It connected billions. It transformed economies. It reshaped culture. It accelerated innovation. It democratized expression. And it quietly altered how humans relate to information, to each other, and to themselves. Attempts to regulate came late. Governments struggled to keep pace with technology that moved faster than law. Companies resisted oversight. Users resisted inconvenience. Once again, invention outpaced ethics. The internet revealed a recurring truth. When a technology becomes essential, questioning it feels impossible. When daily life depends on a system, its flaws become tolerated. Harm becomes normalized. The internet also blurred responsibility. Who controls information? Who decides what is seen? Who is accountable for harm when systems operate autonomously? These questions remain unresolved. Unlike previous inventions, the internet is not confined to objects or locations. It exists everywhere. It adapts constantly. It shapes reality in real time. And unlike gunpowder or chemicals, it cannot simply be banned or withdrawn. The knowledge is embedded. The infrastructure is global. The dependence is complete. This makes the internet one of the most powerful inventions in history, and one of the most difficult to understand fully. Its story is still being written, which makes it dangerous in a different way. Because for the first time, humanity is living inside the consequences of its invention while still inventing it. The internet freed knowledge, but it also revealed how fragile human attention and trust truly are. As humanity entered this new digital era, another invention began to emerge quietly alongside it. One that did not just distribute information but learned from it. One that did not just assist humans but began to imitate them. Unlike previous inventions, this one is still evolving, and unlike all others, it may not remain a tool forever. In the next and final story, we will confront an invention whose future remains uncertain, one that holds extraordinary promise and unprecedented risk, an invention that has not yet finished revealing what it will become. Unlike every invention that came before it, this one does not belong entirely to the past. Artificial intelligence is not a relic of history. It is a presence. It exists now, learning, adapting, and expanding in real time. And because of that, it occupies a strange position in the story of human invention. We are not looking back at its consequences. We are standing inside them. The idea of creating thinking machines is not new. For centuries, humans imagined artificial minds in myths and stories. Mechanical beings, golems, automatons, creations that reflected human intelligence but lacked human limits. For most of history, these ideas remained fantasy. Then computation arrived. Early computers were simple. They followed instructions precisely. They calculated faster than any human, but they did not think. They were tools, extensions of human logic. Artificial intelligence began as an ambition to replicate reasoning, to simulate decision-making, to teach machines how to solve problems the way humans do. At first, progress was slow. Early systems were brittle, limited, easily broken outside controlled environments. Optimism faded. Funding dried up. AI became a promise always just out of reach. Then something changed. Data exploded. Processing power increased. Algorithms improved. Suddenly, machines could learn from experience. They could recognize patterns, adapt strategies, and improve without explicit instruction. Artificial intelligence began to work. It translated languages, recognized faces, predicted behavior, drove vehicles, diagnosed disease, generated art, wrote text, played games at superhuman levels. The pace was breathtaking. Unlike previous inventions, AI did not spread through factories or battlefields. It spread through software updates, quietly, invisibly, seamlessly integrated into daily life. People used AI without thinking about it. Recommendation systems shaped taste. Navigation systems shaped movement. Algorithms shaped attention. Artificial intelligence did not arrive as a single invention. It arrived as an ecosystem. The benefits were immediate and undeniable. Efficiency increased. Costs dropped. Capabilities expanded. Tasks once considered uniquely human were automated. AI saved lives in medicine, optimized logistics, accelerated research. It promised solutions to problems previously thought unsolvable. Once again, invention felt like salvation. But beneath this progress lay unsettling questions. Artificial intelligence does not simply execute instructions. It learns from data created by humans. It absorbs biases, assumptions, and values embedded in that data. This makes AI powerful and dangerous. Because when decisions are automated, accountability blurs. Who is responsible when an algorithm discriminates? When a system fails? When a prediction causes harm? The machine did not choose. Humans designed the system, but no single human controls its behavior. Artificial intelligence also threatens to reshape labor. Jobs once thought secure become vulnerable. Automation accelerates inequality. Productivity increases while displacement grows. History has seen this before. Invention disrupts labor. New jobs replace old ones. Eventually, balance returns. But AI challenges this assumption, because this time, the invention does not just replace physical labor. It replaces cognitive labor. Analysis, creativity, judgment. The line between tool and replacement begins to blur. This creates anxiety, not just about employment, but about identity. If machines can write, compose, diagnose, and decide, what remains uniquely human? Artificial intelligence also raises deeper ethical concerns. Surveillance expands, privacy erodes, behavior becomes predictable and manipulable. Power concentrates in those who control data and infrastructure. Unlike previous inventions, AI scales instantly. A single model can affect millions simultaneously. Errors propagate rapidly. Harm spreads before it is detected, and because AI evolves continuously, regulation struggles to keep pace. Law moves slowly, technology does not. This imbalance echoes past mistakes. Adoption precedes understanding. Convenience precedes caution. Benefits justify risk. But AI introduces something entirely new. Autonomy. Not independence, but complexity beyond direct human oversight. Systems behave in ways even their creators cannot fully predict. This unsettles the core assumption underlying all previous inventions, that humans remain in control. Artificial intelligence challenges that belief. It does not seek power. It does not possess intent, but it operates at scales and speeds incompatible with human decision-making. This creates a paradox. AI is not malicious. But its impact can be, and unlike other inventions, it cannot be easily undone. Knowledge spreads. Models replicate. Capabilities evolve. Once intelligence is automated, it cannot be uninvented. The question becomes not whether AI should exist, but how humanity will coexist with it. This is where history becomes a warning. Gunpowder taught us that invention escapes intention. X-rays showed that invisible harm can be ignored. Radium revealed the danger of blind trust. Thalidomide exposed systemic failure. The atomic bomb demonstrated irreversible power. DDT showed ecological fragility. Disposable culture revealed slow destruction. The internet reshaped cognition itself. Each invention followed the same arc: promise, adoption, consequence, reflection. Artificial intelligence sits at the beginning of that arc, which makes this moment uniquely important. We are not looking back at mistakes, we are deciding whether to repeat them. AI has the potential to save lives, expand knowledge, and solve complex global problems. It also has the potential to deepen inequality, erode autonomy, and concentrate power beyond accountability. The outcome is not predetermined, but history suggests caution. Inventions do not choose their path. Humans do. Artificial intelligence is a mirror. It reflects our priorities, incentives, and values. It amplifies what we reward. It accelerates what we tolerate. If history teaches anything, it is that invention without ethical restraint eventually demands a price, and the cost is often paid by those who did not consent. Artificial intelligence is still writing its history. Whether that history becomes a story of salvation or regret depends not on what machines can do, but on what humans decide they should do. The question is not whether AI will change humanity. It already has. The question is whether humanity will learn from its past before the future becomes permanent. When we look back at history, it is tempting to divide the world into clear categories: good inventions and bad ones, heroes and villains, progress and destruction. It makes the past easier to understand, and it makes us feel safer in the present. But history does not work that way. Every invention we have explored in this journey began with intention, with curiosity, with hope. None of them were born with the goal of destruction. Even the most terrifying among them were created in moments when humanity believed it was acting responsibly, intelligently, and even morally. This is what makes these stories unsettling. The danger was not ignorance, it was confidence. Confidence that intelligence alone was enough. Confidence that benefits would outweigh risks. Confidence that consequences could be managed later. Confidence that control would never be lost. Again and again, humanity crossed thresholds without fully understanding what lay on the other side. Gunpowder promised power and wonder before it delivered warfare on an unimaginable scale. X-rays revealed the hidden body before quietly damaging the people who trusted them most. Radium glowed with hope while poisoning those who believed in its miracle. Aviation fulfilled an ancient dream even as it introduced new forms of mass death. Thalidomide offered comfort and safety only to permanently reshape innocent lives. The atomic bomb ended a war while making extinction possible. DDT saved millions while unraveling ecosystems. Disposable convenience brought ease while burying the planet in waste. The internet freed knowledge while fragmenting truth and attention. Artificial intelligence now stands before us, still unfinished, still undecided. Each invention followed a familiar pattern. First came wonder, then adoption, then normalization, and only later, reflection. By the time reflection arrived, the invention was already embedded into daily life. Economies depended on it, systems relied on it. Entire generations had grown up knowing nothing else. At that point, stopping felt impossible. This is the quiet tragedy of progress. Not that humans invent dangerous things, but that they adapt so well to danger that it stops feeling urgent. What history reveals is not a failure of intelligence, but a failure of humility. We rarely ask whether we should invent something once we know we can. We ask how fast we can build it, how efficiently it can spread, how much it can improve life right now. The future is asked to pay the bill, and the future always arrives. It is easy to believe that we are different now, more informed, more ethical, more cautious, that past generations were reckless while we are responsible. Every generation believes this, and every generation leaves behind inventions that future generations will struggle to control. Progress does not slow because wisdom increases. It accelerates because incentives reward speed. Competition rewards advantage. Power rewards effectiveness. Ethics, by contrast, requires patience. History teaches us that invention does not come with morality built in. It reflects the values of those who use it, and when systems reward profit, dominance, or efficiency above all else, invention follows those values relentlessly. This does not mean humanity should stop inventing. Invention is not the enemy, but blind faith in invention is. The lesson hidden within these stories is not fear but responsibility, not rejection of progress but restraint, not nostalgia for the past but awareness of patterns that repeat too often to ignore. We must learn to ask different questions, not just what an invention can do but what it will change. Not just who it helps, but who it harms. Not just how it works today, but how it will reshape tomorrow. Because the most dangerous inventions are rarely those designed to destroy. They are the ones designed to help, adopted quickly, defended fiercely, and questioned too late. History is not a museum of mistakes. It is a record of warnings. And those warnings are not meant to paralyze us. They are meant to guide us. The future is being invented right now, in laboratories, in code, in ideas that feel abstract today but will shape daily life tomorrow. Some of these inventions will save lives. Some will create new problems. Most will do both. The difference lies not in the invention itself, but in how humanity chooses to engage with it. Will we slow down long enough to understand consequences before they become irreversible? Will we prioritize long-term well-being over short-term gain? Will we demand accountability from systems that grow too complex to easily blame? These are not technical questions. They are moral ones. History shows that once an invention escapes into the world, it cannot be uninvented. Knowledge spreads, power shifts, reality adapts, control becomes negotiation rather than command. This is why reflection must come before release, not after regret. The past does not ask us to reject progress, it asks us to respect it. To treat invention not as destiny but as responsibility. To remember that every tool we create eventually shapes us in return. If there is one truth that binds all these stories together, it is this. Humanity is not destroyed by its inventions. It is tested by them. And the outcome of that test depends not on intelligence, but on wisdom. Not on capability, but on restraint. Not on speed, but on foresight. The future will judge us not by what we were able to build, but by what we chose to do once we understood the cost. History is still watching. And the next chapter has already begun.